Broadcasting from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. This is The Gailey Show. I am your host, JP Darabogosian. We have some brilliant guests for you today with some new books that are coming out. And my first guest is Mazey Eddings, whose latest novel, Late Bloomer, has just come out earlier this spring. Mazey, welcome to The Gailey Show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Did you just have a copy of your book that you were showing up to the camera?
Very Vanna White.
I love that. So folks who are looking on YouTube, you can see a copy of it. It's a gorgeous cover. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. I got so lucky. Jennifer Prince is the artist that created the illustration, and she just absolutely nailed it. So I'm very lucky.
It's I always hear that when authors get that right artist for the book cover, it just makes everything so much more magical. And tell us about Late Bloomer.
Yes. So Late Bloomer is kind of just oh gosh, I've done the elevator pitch so many times that now it just feels like word vomit, but it's a cozy sapphic rom-com that takes place on a flower farm featuring two absolutely chaotic neurodivergent queers, one of whom wins the lottery on a scratch-off lottery ticket and yes, and then decides to randomly, I mean, to her it makes sense, buy property off of Facebook Marketplace to live out her dream of painting shoes. And I promise it makes more sense, or at least it's a little more reasonable in the book. But
painting actual shoes that people wear, or painting shoes like art?
No, actual actual clogs and bags and but mainly shoes. Yeah. I was inspired by this company that actually does hand paint shoes, and I can never afford them. And so I was like, I'm just going to live out this dream of these shoes in this book. But yeah, so she buys this flower farm to kind of escape all of the people knocking on her door for a handout. And when she shows up, she meets grumpy, gorgeous Pepper, who claims to be the rightful owner of the flower farm. And the two have to cohabitate, and they butt heads at every instance as they figure out an arrangement to kind of buy each other out. And then some sparks fly.
Oh, sparks fly. You should ask the company that does the painting of the shoes and say, I'm going on a book tour. You should give me a pair and I will promote them while I'm on tour, and then you can have a pair.
I have reached out. I have been left on red, and that's so fine. We're all just doing what we need to do. I respect it. There, no harm, no foul, but I did try. Yeah, I went for it, but no luck.
Oh, boo. Boo. I do love to see neurodivergent representation in queer literature because there is not enough of it. So tell me more about that.
So I'm autistic and ADHD, and so a lot of my characters end up somewhere in some neurodivergent spectrum or things like that, just because I find it a lot easier to write that perspective than neurotypical. But one thing I think that's really important and interesting is there's a huge overlap between people that are neurodivergent and identify somewhere in the LGBTQ plus community.
Really?
Yeah, it's a very substantial, I could be wrong, but I think it was 65%. Yeah,
wow.
of neurodivergent people identify somewhere in the community. And so, to me, pretty much all of my friends are queer and neurodivergent. And so I was like, well, that just tracks. And so, it felt very natural and organic. And I think in a lot of ways, especially people that have late diagnoses with some sort of neurodivergency, it can in some ways, as somebody that's done both, can almost feel like a coming out as well, where you have this new identity and this language for how you move through the world, and then you are sharing that with other people. and there's still so much stigma surrounding neurodivergency as well. And so, yeah, I mean, both are just like very important identities to me, to my characters, but they're also never like a traumatic plot point. It's very much just kind of normalizing happily existing as queer and autistic or ADHD or, you know, identifying just as neurodivergent. So, yeah.
I love that. That's amazing. And we need more writers and voices like you within the queer sphere, the queer literary scene. So I'm really happy to see that you are on your 5th novel. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And you are also a dentist?
I am. I know. I try to keep that on the down low. I get weird looks when I'm mentioned.
Well, it's on your bio on your website, so
Yes,
I don't know how down low it is. But so wait, which came first? Did the dental career come first and then you got into writing, or were you a writer and then got into the dental work to support the writing?
Yeah, just my side hustle. Oh, crowns and bridges. No, I think I have always been a particularly like creative-minded person, but I was always also told that if I wanted like job stability, to go into medicine, and I found so much creativity in dentistry. In a very weird way, you know, doing fillings and things like that are like sculptures. And so it's very, yeah, it's very creative and artistic in that way, but it also allows you to form really, I feel like, important and great connections with people over a long period of time. And so, yeah, I kind of put like my creative dreams aside, and I never really thought that like, I was like, people don't write books. Like, that's not something people do. Like, you know, like I had like them on writers on pedestals and stuff. And then I was in dental school and had a quarter life crisis from the stress of everything. And so then I rediscovered my love of reading, and I was reading like a book a night to kind of like cope with the anxiety of things, and romance in particular, because the guaranteed happy ending was very important and like soothing. And then these characters popped into my head, and they were very loud and voicey. And I was like, I think it feels more socially acceptable to say that I'm writing a book than that I'm like having these conversations with these characters in my head. And so I just kind of went with it. And then I found myself finishing this, and I was like, well, I have nothing to lose by pursuing publishing it. And then I just got very lucky with people saying yes at various points. And now here I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you say you were reading a book a night?
I was really having a bad time. I was like, I just couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I was like I was like very anxious, and yeah, it was bad.
A book a night. That's...
I mean, maybe like a book, or maybe like 3/4 of a book, and then
still.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh my gosh, it takes me like weeks.
I don't read that fast anymore, but it's crazy what you can do with like 8 hours uninterrupted.
Well, that's true. That's yeah, that's true. That's a good point. That's a good point. I can see getting through it. Yeah. I can see that. Well, I mean, lucky for us that you got to this point to start writing. And I never actually thought of dental work as being creative work, but it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. I want to continue this conversation on our YouTube channel and everywhere that folks get their podcasts. We're going to continue this conversation. So stick around with us, Mazey. The book is Late Bloomer. Mazey, your website is mazeyeddings.com. Social that folks can follow you on? Yes,
at Mazey Eddings. It used to be Foxy Grandpa 27, and so now I can't remember which ones I haven't changed over yet. But like, yeah, Mazey is probably the easiest way to find it.
Perfect. Well, thank you for being on The Gaily Show.
Thank you.
And for folks who are on YouTube and listening to us on your favorite podcast app, thank you for sticking around with us in this conversation. I wanted to ask you, Mazey, back to Late Bloomer. Mm-hmm. What was something that well, first of all, are you someone that thinks of as a writer, do you think of the ending first and then work your way there? Or do you get the kind of the premise going and then the ending sort of reveals itself to you?
Every book has been different so far. I would say I generally have an idea of the ending. And I think the one thing that's like really fun and exciting about romance is that we kind of have this built-in knowledge that the characters are going to end up together. But it feels really exciting from like the writer's standpoint of how are they going to get there, especially like with all the different conflicts and things like that, and also just figuring out how their love like feels different than other essentially like other couples or other stories, and because everybody's story is unique, I feel like, but yeah, it kind of depends, per couple. I always have an idea of their dynamic. I know where we're going with things, and I kind of have an idea of why they're essentially wrong for each other, but also very, very right for each other. But I write out of order. I don't plot. It's a very chaotic process, and it could be so much easier if I just could think linearly. But I call it quilting, where I'm just kind of jumping from
Yeah.
square to square, chapter to chapter on whatever feels most exciting at the time, and it kind of unfurls for me as I go through it.
Oh no, yeah, there's no one right.
Yeah.
There's no one right way to write. Wow, that's kind of
Yes.
tricky to say.
It is.
But so no, that was kind of a setup question to this question. Then, as you were going through the process, what surprised you as you were going through writing Late Bloomer? Like, were there things that you didn't realize you were going to discover that you ended up discovering?
Well, yeah, this was actually originally a holiday novel. So it took place on a Christmas tree farm. And yeah, and I got about 50% in with that setup and like that season and everything like that. And my girls were just like not having it felt like pushing a Buick through a wood chipper. Like it was just not working. And I was getting frustrated with them, and I was like, why are you being so obstinate? Like, why won't you go? Why won't you do your thing? And then I realized that they just don't like the cold. And they were just like, they were like seasonal depression. And, I was like, what? So fair, so true. And so, yeah, like I said, I got pretty far into it. And then I had to have a conversation with my editor where I was like, hey, so instead of the holiday book that I promised, what if we make it just like cottage core, flower farm, like sunshiny fun? And she's like, okay. And so, yeah, and so she lets me get away with a lot of stuff. I God bless her. Yeah, I kind of went through and changed the season, and I realized that there were so many. They just loved flowers. And so I got to explore that so much deeper, which was really fun on my end too, because I love flowers. And so I got to research and do a ton of field trips to flower farms and like learn way too much information about soil composition. But yeah, it just, it gave me, that did not make it in the book, but it just gave me the opportunity to play, and yeah, kind of frolic with this new setting, kind of alongside them. Lesson learned, just don't try to push something that's not working because you waste a lot of time.
Oh, yeah. No, that's great advice for all the writers who are listening to the show right now. And I can't leave without asking you about Yaya and Zadie.
Yes, thank you. Oh my gosh, we could. You know what? Have me back, and we'll just do an entire hour-long segment. Give the people what they want. I'm sure. My cats, they're so good. Just to a quick overview. One is like absurdly large, and one has like given up on growing. And so she's very tiny, but she does have just like the biggest primordial pouch, and so when she runs, it like smacks her on the sides. And then and the small one has never been burdened with a thought. And then the big one is just like too much consciousness, essentially. And so they both work to essentially destroy everything I place any value on. So it's really fun. Yeah, center of my world. Like,
oh, do either of them help you with the writing process?
It's funny, like they each like they'll feel more like, well, I'm like totally projecting and making this up because I don't think that they actually have any idea of what's going on, but like depending on which story I'm working on, one of them will be more like in my face or like on my laptop, like while I'm working on it, and consistently throughout the whole thing. So I don't know if it's like a vibe thing or I just need to make more human friends. But yeah, I like to think that they're my secretaries. Sometimes I just have them walk across the keyboard and hope for the best.
Oh, that's great. Well, definitely a shout out to Yaya and Zadie. Do you post photos? Are there cat videos on your social media?
Oh, yes. Well, especially on my stories and like my website, I had an entire page dedicated to them. But my partner was like, this is almost off-putting how many cats are like on here. And so
No, there can never be enough.
okay, that was my feeling on it. And so I've just like I've trimmed it down, and then I hit people with like the one two, like with the really like showstoppers. But my camera roll is nothing but cats. So and my TikTok is a lot of my cats too. Which is so weird that I only get like 80 views when I post a video.
Especially given that's surprising because I mean the whole internet was made for cats.
I agree. Yeah, I completely agree. And so, I one day that will be because like I said, I'm their stage mom. And so one day we'll make it happen. Everybody's dream is going to come true.
I mean, we thought the internet was for the free flow and transfer of information, but actually, cats invented it for the worship and devotion to them, pretty much.
And I gladly follow that. No questions asked.
Yeah. I mean, the Egyptians had the Sphinx, and we have cat videos.
Yes. Yeah. We have motorboating their primordial pouches and just having a good old time.
Well, that's a great. I want to leave folks with that visual right now, and just get to go on to Instagram or Facebook and to find those videos. But speaking of social, so remind our viewers again and listeners of where they can follow you on social.
Yes. So on Instagram, it's at Mazey Eddings, and then on TikTok, it's FoxyGrandpa27. And so both lots of cross posting there, but just not the same handle. and my website's mazeyeddings.com.
Wonderful. And the book is Late Bloomer. Everyone find it at your local bookstores. There's that cover again. Absolutely gorgeous cover. Find it at bookshop.org, your local indie. Find it at your local public library. If for whatever reason it's not there, tell them to buy it and stock it in their bookstore or in their library. Mazey, thank you again for being on The Gaily Show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Well, that is our show for today. Thanks everyone for listening and or watching. Our podcasts are executive produced by Jim Pounds. Creative and accounting support provided by Gordy Erickson. Production, distribution, and marketing support provided by Brett Johnson, Chad Larson, Laura Headland, and Jennifer Ogren from AM 950. You can find us on social media. Search for This Queer Book Saved My Life on Facebook. We're at This Queer Book on Instagram and at _Gaily Show. Follow us on Instagram for preview clips from upcoming episodes. For The Gaily Show, check out our YouTube channel, unless you're watching us there right now. We're also on AM 950's YouTube channel and Facebook page. As always, you can connect with us through our website, thisqueerbook.com. On our website, you can leave me a voice message of the current LGBTQ books, film, or TV you're loving right now. And if you send me a message, I will play it on the air to share with our community. Go to our homepage, thisqueerbook.com, scroll down, and you will see an orange box with a microphone. Click it and share your message of what queer media you're loving to watch or read. And if you have LGBTQ entertainment news with a Minnesota angle, email gailyshow@thisqueerbook.com. That's GAILY show@thisqueerbook.com. And until our next episode, see you queers and allies in the bookstores.